Welcome to the Microsoft Tips Showcase, where we provide quick, single-topic videos on how to do something within a Microsoft 365 related tool, such as SharePoint, Dynamics, Office, etc. SharePoint lists and libraries allow you to create calculated columns, which will allow you to calculate data in a variety of ways. In this training session, you will learn how to create a calculated column, how to calculate on numbers for simple addition, how to calculate on text to properly format text, and how to calculate on dates to determine an expiration date. The following steps that we're going to do assume you are beginning from within a Microsoft 365 SharePoint site, Teams site, or something similar that contains lists or libraries. To get started, we'll open our SharePoint site using this tab right here. I'm on my home page. And next, let's click on the list called Metadata Demo in the Quick Launch menu here on the left-hand side of the page. Next, I'll open up the list settings by going to the gear icon in the top right corner, opening up the menu, and then selecting the list settings option. One thing to keep in mind, you might be seeing something different. What I just showed you and walked through was the new Microsoft look and feel, but you may be seeing the classic view, and I can go ahead and show that to you now. Let's go back and open our list again by clicking on Metadata Demo in the Quick Launch. What we see here is the modern look and feel, but down in the bottom left-hand side, it might be really small on your screen, but it says Return to Classic. When I click on that, this might look more familiar to you, this look and feel. So now we'll open List Settings by going up to the tab for List. On the ribbon, we're going to come across here to the Settings command group on the right and choose List Settings. And now we're right back at the list settings that we were at a minute ago. So let's go ahead and create a column. We're going to scroll down this page, and right here below the existing columns is Create a Column. So we'll click on that link, and we're now on the form to create a new column. I'll use it to walk you through what you need to do to create a calculated column, and I'm going to repeat it for the 3 different types we're going to learn today. Before I get started with the actual population of the data, I just want to walk down really quick and tell you about the fields, because we are going to repeat this fairly fast for 3 times. So the first field, or the first section that you would enter in here, is the column name. Then you can choose one of these types of data you can choose. We're obviously going to choose calculated as we come down. And then as you continue to scroll down, you'll see description. We can put that in. That's what you want to put in so that people can see that data. Formula is what we're going to get to. That's the calculation. You can choose how it should be displayed. So this section here, the data type returned, is what it's going to look like to the users. You have the add to default view. I leave that in every time so that way when we create the column, it shows up. We can see it in our default view on the list. And then the last one, column formatting, that's an advanced functionality. We're not going to talk about that in these introduction trainings. So let me go back up to the top and let's create our 3 columns. The first one I want to do is total years of experience. And so I'm going to enter a title here, total years of experience. And then I already chose the type I wanted, which is calculated. Next thing we want to do is put in a description. And so in this particular case, we can sit there and say calculated based on project management experience added to SharePoint experience. So this allows us to just communicate with people how is this all being added up. So put a little description there, and now let's go ahead and put our formula in. And the way formulas work, and I'm not trying to make you an expert on formulas in this training. This training is about how to create a calculated column. Calculated columns allow you to use formulas. I'll show you 3 that you can use today, but once you learn about a calculated column, you can always go to Google and quickly type in SharePoint calculated column formulas, and you'll see many formulas that you could put in. And I would recommend you do that, because then you start seeing even more potential. So let's go ahead and create a formula here for this one. And I already said in the description what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to add project management experience to SharePoint experience to give me total experience. I have a field here already in my list called project management experience. A little hard to see, but when I double click on it, you see it right here. And you'll notice it puts a bracket around the 3 words. Those 2 brackets basically just mean that that's the field name. Now all I do is put a plus sign in there because I want to add the project management experience to the SharePoint experience, which is right here. And now you see that the SharePoint experience is also listed as a field with the brackets. One thing I forgot to mention is what you see on the right-hand side here. These are the list of available fields you can add into your formula. You can add a lot more stuff in there, but this is the basic start. Because we're going to do total years of experience, that's a number. I'm going to change this data type returned to a number. That means when it does the calculation, the results will be just an actual number. I don't have any decimal points that I require. I want whole numbers, and so I'm changing that to 0 decimal points. And then as I continue to scroll down, you have the option to show it as percentage. In this example, we're not doing that. And let me scroll out a little bit. That was one calculated field. I'll show you what it looks like in a minute, but let's create the other two. So this one, I'm going to press the OK button. Calculated column is created, and there it is right there, total years of experience. Let's go ahead and create another column. I'm going to click on Create Column. Try to zoom in a little bit. Actually, let me change it to Calculated because it resets the form. Zoom in so you guys can see it a little better as I'm doing this. And so this next one's going to be called, I just call it full name right now. And the purpose of this one is I want to be able to make sure that if somebody enters in a name in a different field in all lower cases, that it actually displays it properly in what's called title case, I believe. So it has a capital first letter for each one of the names. So I have a name for it, full name, calculated column. I don't think it really needs a description, so I'm going to skip that on this. And the field I care about is employee name. So I'm going to type in equals proper, and that's the actual term for setting it up for like a proper first name, last name type thing. I want the employee name. That's a free text field, and if somebody types in there, I want this to be the field that's going to be proper. So basically I'm telling, and again, I'm not trying to overly teach you calculations. You'll learn these formulas yourself, but basically this is a formula that takes the employee name and puts it in a proper format. I'll show you what that looks like. Because that's just a name field, we'll leave that as a single line of text. That's the proper data type to return. And then, as always, leave it in the default view. I'm going to come down here now and hit OK on the bottom right-hand side. And now you'll see that we have, again, we have the two fields there, SharePoint experience, total years of experience and full name. Now let's create our third calculated column by clicking on Create Column. I'm going to change it again to calculated before I zoom in. And now we can zoom in, and you can follow along hopefully a little easier. So this third one's going to be a complicated one, so stick with me on it. The purpose of this one in this example is to create an expiration date automatically based on a different date. Our scenario is that users can upload, or you can upload something and declare that item a record on a particular date. And so there's a date field in there that you'll see for that. We want to be able to determine what's the expiration date if it's 3 years out. So let me go ahead and create this, and we'll kind of walk you through on it. So first thing we do is give it a name, expiration date, and then I mentioned this one's pretty important for us to give a description. So let's go ahead and put something in, the date, this. So there you go. So what we're saying is 3 years after the declaration date, it should be expired. So how do we create that? This one's getting into a little more complex formula, and I just put this in as a way to show you. You saw a couple of easy ones. Well, let me show you even a more complex one. But I'm going to start first by just saying equals record declaration date. You see it right there in my columns I can choose. And then I'm just going to say +3. And so my intention is 3 years later. And it's a date, so we're going to scroll down here and choose date. You can choose whether you want to add the time in there. I just need the date. And again, that's it. So let's go choose OK over on the right. And we're done. I'm going to go back to the list now and test it with a new item and help you walk through and see what it looks like once we've created it. To get there, we're going to come back up here to the logo. Right to the right of the logo is the breadcrumbs, and you can just click on the name of the list and it takes you back to the home page. We're going to click on New Item. And so here you see our fields are up here. And I'm just going to fill in some basic stuff that matters to us, right? So here I'm just going to say Robbie Shoemaker. And the other fields that are important to us at the moment is I want a declaration date. So let me choose a date. Let's say 29th of January this year. And then project management experience, I'm going to say this person has 12 years of project management experience. Let me zoom in just to help you. 12 years of project management experience. They have 6 years of SharePoint experience. And so the thought is that it's going to improve the name. So it's going to take the R and the S and make it capitalized. It'll add 3 years to the date and declare it or put an expiration date. And then it'll also add up these experiences. So let's go see what happens. I'm pressing the Save button. It's saved. Here's Robbie Shoemaker. I know you can see it over to the right, but let me just open the form and zoom in so we can see what we got. So now the first thing we wanted was a calculated column that took Robbie Shoemaker and properly did it. And you'll notice down here under full name, Robbie's name is now properly titled with the first letters of each word capitalized. The second thing we wanted to do was add the total years of experience. That was 12 years of project management experience with 6 years of SharePoint experience. It gave us the 18. So that calculation's perfect too. And then the last one is we had a record declaration date of January 29th. We wanted to add 3 years, but when you look down there, it looks like all we did was add 3 days. And I just wanted to be able to show you that there's different calculations you can do in different ways. And that was planned. So let's go back and see if we can update that formula. And the way we do that is come back to the List tab, come across on the ribbon to the List Settings. And in the List Settings, we're going to come down to that calculated column we created for expiration date. And now, being on the expiration date, we can see that the information I put in was telling SharePoint to just add 3 days, apparently, to the formula. And I kind of knew that, right? I tested it for us. But let me go ahead and get rid of this one and put in the proper formula. And I want to show it to you just really quick, walk through, just so you have an awareness of it. I don't need you to become an expert at it in one day, because, again, I'm not trying to make you or train you on formulas, but give you an awareness of it as it relates to calculated columns. So here it says the equal sign. I'm scrolling across, and I apologize. Let me zoom in here. So as we come across, you'll see date, and that's what we're telling it to do. And then as we go forward, we wanted it to add to the year. And so now you'll notice I have a +3 right there for the year. But as I move on to the month does not have anything after it, and the day does not have anything after it. Just the year over here. And so now I'm properly telling SharePoint to put it at 3 years out. So let's go ahead and see if I did that correctly. I'm going to press the OK on the bottom right. Now we're going to sit there and go back to the breadcrumbs up here on the top right, or excuse me, top left. And in here, let's click on Robbie Shoemaker, see if we got our 3 years out there. And as you can see, Robbie Shoemaker is now expiring on the 2021, which is 3 years out, and that's perfect. It's that straightforward to create calculated columns. We used calculated columns to improve the text in here by making the mistakes of all lowercase properly display as uppercase letter for the first letter of each word. We added in numbers, or we did basic addition by adding the experiences together to get total experience. And then we also took a record declaration date and automatically calculated an expiration date out 3 years. And so that displayed that for us. Those are 3 examples of how you can use a calculated column and the ways to put in the formula that'll do that all for you. I hope you find this is useful to you. Let me go back to my home page. And that concludes the lesson on calculated columns. I hope you found the tip useful as you continue to use Microsoft 365 related products in support of your day-to-day job. Please provide me with feedback in the comments, including suggestions for tips you'd like to see. If you found this tip helpful, please share it with others on one of the social media platforms and just give it a thumbs up. I'm your host, Neil McDonald with SV MacPack. I thank you for joining me today and hope you'll join us again for other tips.